Scott,
Brent?
good morning.
Yeah, dude, this is so freaking different. Oh man, I can tell you, I'm not used to recording this early. Uh, I am used to going to work, coming home, and getting all of our stuff together and recording at night. But it is a nice little change of pace here.
It really is. I'm so used to being in here in my studio, artificial light on. I have light coming through the window. It's different. I could get used to this. This is all right.
It's a good feeling.
So we'll go ahead and jump into this thing. We're going to be doing South Dakota today. I almost said tonight. Today?
Yes, South Dakota, and God, it was hard to find things on South Dakota. Things that were interesting, to say the least.
It really was. There was everything that I looked at in South Dakota. I think there is one town in South Dakota, and that is it. It just seemed like there's nothing there. Everything that you pull up is this the same place? Where did you find?
It's the same city, Deadwood.
Yes. I think
Deadwood
is the only place that exists in South Dakota.
Deadwood is. So I've kind of got more of my first one, and I'm just going, before we get into the wheel spin, I want to let you know what I've got. I've got one. I wouldn't much so call it a haunting, but it's more of a legend and a lore. As well as one that has a potential for significant paranormal activity. Nice. But that one was actually in Aberdeen.
So you did find somewhere outside of Deadwood?
Yep.
Well, let's jump into the wheel spin, get that knocked out, and we'll jump into this episode.
All right, let's swap over and spin. We got Oregon.
Oregon. I wonder if I can find anything with a redwood forest.
I'm not sure.
I'm fascinated with the redwood forest. I have never been there yet, but I will go.
I've heard the redwood forest is beautiful.
I want to see it. I really, really, really want to see it. All right, I am going to jump us into this thing. So we're in South Dakota, as mentioned before. The very first one that I'm going to speak about is called the Little Devils of Spirit Mound. Spirit Mound is a 320-acre prairie located near Vermilion. It is a historic prairie where Lewis and Clark stopped during their expedition and met with the Sioux Indians. They told Lewis and Clark some of their tales, their lore tales of these 18-inch tall demonic men with large heads who terrorized the area. So Lewis and Clark spent some time trying to find these little devils, as they were called.
Okay.
Obviously, they had no luck. There are people that still go out even to this day. They with bow and arrows, with nets, with all kind of things, trying to find these so-called little devils that terrorize the prairie. Tourists, even locals, all still go out there hunting the little devils regularly. Obviously, I could not find any pictures of the little devils because nobody has managed to capture one as of yet. But we do know from the Sioux Indians that they are an 18-inch tall, oversized head prairie devil. And if you're interested in seeing this place, you can still walk the 3/4 mile trail. It is the same trail that Lewis and Clark took during their expedition. That is the quick short of the Little Devils of Spirit Mound.
So that's more of like an Indian or Native American folklore type deal.
That is correct.
Nice, I like that. Do you know the story about Devil's Gulch?
Do you know the Muffin
it?
Man? Sorry.
I do know the Muffin Man. Do you know the Muffin Man?
God, I can't remember the road.
He lives on Drury Lane.
The one on Drury Lane?
The one on Drury Lane.
Everyone knows the Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man.
You know, you said that. Do you know? Do you really know the Muffin Man that lives on Drury Lane?
Mm-mm. I mean, I know the kid story behind it, but
The Muffin Man was a real man that lived on Drury Lane. Back in, I do not know the year, but back in whatever year it is, most kids' tales and the lore of kids' tales come from real events that happen. So the Muffin Man was a kidnapper slash murderer that did his kidnapping off of Drury Lane. They called him the Muffin Man because he came out with muffins and he would lure kids to him with muffins. So that's where the whole tale, if you actually listen to the dark history of that tale, is the Muffin Man came out and he would lure kids in with muffins to kidnap.
Linwood, England.
Yes.
15
Most of
children.
all kids' tales come from freaking England in some shape, form, or fashion.
15 children's he lured into dark alleys with muffins on strings.
Bedtime came, parents would tell their kids to the tale of the Muffin Man. You know, beware of the Muffin Man. Do you want to know the Muffin Man? I don't know how the tale goes, but it's a real story. So, do you know the Muffin Man?
You know, I would like to meet him.
The one on Drury Lane? Sorry.
They also called him the Drury Lane Dicer.
I didn't know that one, or at least I don't remember it.
He murdered 7 rival pastry chefs as well, using a sharpened wooden spoon as his weapon of choice. Dude, that would actually be a pretty interesting podcast to do.
Put it on the list.
It's actually really interesting.
That would be a very, very good Patreon special.
Yes, it would. I'm sure you've heard of the Devil's Gulch, right? In South Dakota?
Yes, I've heard the name.
All right, so basically it's like a rock formation where waters ran through, almost like a super small Grand Canyon. But not in the desert, obviously. The Devil's Gulch is a legend and a lore. It has some Native American back to it, which we'll get into. The Devil's Gulch it's a quartzite rock chasm, or chasm, if you will, located in eastern Minnehaha County, near the town of Garrettson, close to the border of Minnesota. Now, there's a pretty interesting story to this. The Native American story is pretty cool to hear, as well as the lore and legend of Jesse James comes into play with Devil's Gulch as well.
Jesse James comes up in a lot of different stories.
Yes, he does. The origins of the name Devil's Gulch, nobody knows where it came from. Maybe it came from Native American tribes. Maybe it came from something else. I don't know. I couldn't find it. I tried searching it. There's a river that runs through this rock formation that's also named the Devil's Gulch. Anyway, I digress on that. We'll get into the Native American reasoning as to how this canyon appeared. They called this Devil's Gulch the Spirit Canyon. And according to the legend, the canyon was created as a result of a tomahawk throwing contest between 2 warriors. While the 2 men tossed their tomahawks, suddenly the earth trembled, the rock split, and the canyon appeared. Spirit Canyon became a holy place for the Indians, and for the white man, a place that the plow shall never touch. And they actually stood their ground. They fought there many times, defending Devil's Gulch. So now we're going to talk about Mr. Jesse James, the notorious outlaw that we've all heard of. So it said that, and I'll put some pictures. Actually, I can put pictures up right now so you can see this while I'm talking about it. It is said that Jesse James, during one of his attempted robberies, was running from a posse of people. And to get from Minnesota to South Dakota, straight shot, you had to cross the gulch. But at the time, there was no bridge. You would basically have to travel really far down either way to get across. So the legend behind it is that while Jesse James was on horseback being chased by the posse, the horse jumped the 18-foot gap of Devil's Gulch.
Nice.
Right. So now a lot of people, especially people that deal with horses, will say that the jump of 18 feet is pretty impossible. Is especially because of the terrain there is. I mean, there's so many jagged rocks. I mean, you can see how the formation of those canyons there are. I mean, imagine what the top of it looks like.
Right.
And with a horse, if a horse is full speed, how can a horse jump 18 foot off of jagged terrain as such? Now, there was also one person that deals with horses who said that it would be possible for a horse to jump 18 feet, but that would be
Flat area,
very
full stride, great conditions. Let's go
correct. But he also stated that it's very unlikely, even on a fresh, fast, new horse, one that's just broke in, could get the necessary speed to jump the gulch because of the terrain. But in 1924, there was an editor of the Garrison newspaper. His name was W. Sanders. He wrote in the newspaper in 1924, it was across the Devil's Gulch, as the legend has it, that Jesse James jumped. That was in 1924. The quote was published in the Daily Argus Leader, which was a Sioux Falls newspaper. And at that time, once that newspaper headline hit, that's where the legend of Jesse James and Devil's Gulch came.
So until that was written, there was nothing said about this miraculous jump.
Correct. Now there was, but there wasn't. So I might be jumping a little ahead. It was said that it's possible that Jesse James told his story that he jumped across a little puddle, and over years and years and years, it turned into from a little 5-foot puddle or 5-foot ditch into a 5-foot hole in the ground to a 18-foot jump across Devil's Gulch. The legend of Jesse James has found a permanent home at Devil's Gulch on the north edge of Garrison, South Dakota, calling it a pedigree legend. Reporter J.A. Jerome wrote, "It is probably true that Jesse and Frank James had to jump across some chasm there, as there was no bridge of any kind. They were being chased by a Luverne, Minnesota posse. While the brothers were indeed chased by the posse, facts tend to be scarce when one tries to explain the big jump. It's known that on September 17th, 1876, in the morning, that the James brothers had breakfast at the Charles Rolfe homestead, which was 12 miles north of present-day Luverne, Minnesota. It is also known that James' boys entered Dakota Territory about 5 miles north of Valley Springs, and that on the evening of the 17th, they visited the Andrew Nelson homestead along the Split Rock River, Split Rock River is just outside Devil's Gulch. The timeline
So we
suggests.
do
Go
know
ahead.
the timeline he was there.
Correct. At least in that area, I'd say within a 10 to 15 mile radius. Yes. The timeline suggests that they were never even at Devil's Gulch, but they were close. Nevertheless, the tale has become a tidbit of lore that persists to this day.
So the whole tale could have been he jumped over a 5-foot ditch, and since he was so close to the place, that as the tale kept being told, it became he jumped over Devil's Gulch.
Correct. Now, also at the same time, people that have gone there to visit say that they hear the sound of a horse and they can see a spiritual horse jump over the gulch with a man on back. But at the same time, it's like we've talked about before. If you want to believe something long enough and hard enough, you're going to make yourself see what you want it to see.
Manifest it.
Correct. Now, that's one of the lores of Devil's Gulch. There's a second. And it is said to be haunted by the ghost of two lovers who died there in each other's arms. The story goes that sometime in the 1800s, a white outlaw and a band of Indians kidnapped a lady named Nellie Harding and took her to the gorge. Her fiance managed to find them and actually was successful in killing most of his girl's kidnappers. However, both he and Nellie were fatally wounded in the melee. Since that day, visitors have reported hearing moans and screams, as well as seeing an apparition of the lovers holding each other on the ledge.
Nice.
But I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, you got to throw in a little lore occasionally, especially in a place like South Dakota where it's just there's a lot of places that they say are haunted, but when you go to look the history up on these places, man, there's just like you can't find why would it be haunted? What would cause it? What's the history behind it? It's almost impossible to find a lot of details on it. I'm sure you came across that same problem.
So the one I'm going to be doing next is Fairmont Hotel.
Okay.
That one's the same way. One of the ghosts that's supposed to be in the Fairmont Hotel, they said was died in the building beside Fairmont Hotel, but the ghost for some reason is in Fairmont Hotel, not in the building beside it. But as far as the lore goes, any of the places, the Indian tribes, all of the Native American Indians, if you go into some of these lores, they have some of the best lores and tales that you.
Oh, absolutely.
So, with the Fairmont Hotel being spoke of, let's just go ahead and go into that one.
Let's do it.
In Deadwood, the corner of Main Street and Wall Street, sits the building that was the Fairmont Hotel. This building is no longer a hotel as of now. It is a family restaurant and a gaming establishment. Only on the first floor.
Sounds like my kind of place.
With free jumbo shrimp pizza and beer while gambling.
Oh, definitely my kind of place.
You got to read the small print. It's not the penny machine with a penny at a time, I bet.
It's unfortunate. $3?
And I don't know.
Can we do $3 hands here? $3,
maybe.
$5 hands?
But you know what's going to happen. She's going to walk by. She's going to ask what you want to drink. You're going to tell her what you want to drink. You're going to tell her, hey, let me get 12 shrimp. You will see those in an hour and a half later.
That's true.
They will come.
That's true.
They will be free, and they will show up an hour and a half later.
After you've already left.
Correct.
After you're already empty and pocketless.
Yeah. I've been to very few casinos in my life, and that was the experience that I had.
Yeah, I've only been to one.
So the Fairmont Hotel, it's a 3-story redstone building, and it also has karaoke there on Friday and Saturday nights. Just so you know. It only operates off the first floor, as said earlier. The second and third floor has plans on being something done with it. I did not write down the owner of the place now. I think his name was Ron. He has plans to do something with his second and third floor also. He's wanting to do renovations and make it available.
But right now, it's just empty space.
Well, yes, right now it's empty space, but the third floor plans keep getting askewed because of the ghost. The building was built in 1898 after Deadwood had seen a fair share of tragedies as of then. September the 26th, 1879, there was a fire in Deadwood that burnt most of the town down to the ground. The Fairmont Hotel was one of the buildings that actually survived the fire. It destroyed more than 300 buildings in that fire. Most people lost a lot of their belongings, if not all of their belongings, and that's where a lot of people packed up their bags from that point and left. So Deadwood was a mining town, and that's what originally brought the town to being. So after the
Makes
fire
sense.
and a lot of people left, 1888, the Deadwood Central Narrow Gauge Railroad was built, and then in 1893, the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad bought that railroad out. There's some history of the railroads, being that it was there because of the mining town. I just want to just kind of give you just a few dates. You got an idea of a little bit of the history of this place and where it came from. From 1902 to 1924, this railroad was used as a interurban passenger system. After the market crash in 1929, it was abandoned about a year later. The Fairmont Hotel started in 1898 as a Victorian brothel, bar, and gambling hall in the heart of the red light district on Lower Main Street. The Fairmont Hotel was the original location of Saloon Number 10, where Wild Bill Hickok was shot in the back.
Really? Old Hickok got shot there, huh?
Yep.
No joke.
The Fairmont Hotel never put on like it was a 5-star glorious place to be. They never tried to even act like it was this to-do place to be at. They always advertised their place as being a great place to go drink, gamble, and where working girls could get a room to entertain lonely men. It embraced its shadiness.
Sounds about right.
Even during Prohibition and during World War II, when the government ordered all of these places to be shut down, the Fairmont did not. It stayed open and prostitution continued until 1980.
Prostitutes are key.
1980.
That's a long time for a brothel to stay around, especially in the 80s, and they didn't get shut down, huh?
Yeah, all the way till 1980. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So the Fairmont is said to be one of the most haunted places in South Dakota. It was built to be a place for lowbrow entertainment, they said, for working men during the gold mining era, drinking, gambling, and ladies working the night. All of that brought with it negative energy and trouble. So one young prostitute got drunk one night and jumped out of the third-story window, ending herself.
Did she jump or did she jump?
That's the same thing. That is the exact same thought that went through my head. There's another story of one man in love. The woman he was in love with was a prostitute here. Goes to the room where her and a client is currently conducting business. He came into the room where they were at, gun drawn, shot a lot of rounds at her and the client. Luckily for both of them, he was not a good shot and missed them with every shot that he did shoot.
So we're talking at the most a 15-foot shot with a pistol. And he couldn't hit a single shot?
I would say 15 foot would be kind of generous. We're talking about a hotel room of that era.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like on the longer side, 15 foot.
Correct. He did not hit him one time. She got up.
I mean, was he shooting blank shots? I mean,
no, they wasn't blank because she got up as she pushed him out of the door. he accidentally shot himself and killed himself with that shot.
Ain't that a turn of events there? Yeah, he was a bad shot until he killed himself.
Yep, until he shot himself. So it is
Everything
said that
was
this...
good until I took an arrow to the knee. Oh man.
It is said that this man haunts the 3rd floor and claims the 3rd floor is his. So this is going back to the owner of this building now trying to renovate the 2nd and 3rd floors to make things happen there as well. He has said anything that tries to be done on the 3rd floor, that this ghost torments everything about the floor. Ron, the guy that currently owns the building, has said when he has been on the 3rd floor trying to do renovations that he has had his tools ripped from his hands and thrown across the room by an unseen
entity. My question is, since he had his gun in hand when he died, does he still walk around with that gun?
I don't even know if he is a full apparition. Because even the guy, Ron, he just says that his tools get ripped out of his hands and thrown across the room. He didn't say that he can see anybody. I don't know where it's came up with that he is the ghost of the 3rd floor that torments the 3rd floor. I couldn't find anything
stipulation
about that
at this point.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. I was gonna say, because if he's haunting the place with a gun, I mean, I'm not worried about him.
Well, no. I would say not, because he's not going to hit you with it.
He's not going to hit you.
The claims of things like this, where the guy says the tools are being ripped from his hands and thrown across the room. We live in the day and age now where there's a lot of cameras, phones, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're getting to the point where if some of this stuff like this is really happening, somebody's got to get this stuff on film at some point.
Something's got to be on camera. Somewhere, somehow.
I mean, just like the one that you had from last time with the light flickering. That's neat. Yep. That's really, really neat.
Well, that was really interesting. That's the Fairmont Hotel. I really like that. If I'm ever in South Dakota, I might go check that place out, honestly. I say if I'm ever... Dude, I never get out of my hometown, so, I mean...
I was about to say, you plan on going to South Dakota next week or something?
Dude... There's actually a ghost town in Deadwood, I think. That was pretty intriguing to me, but I didn't cover it. It was just pretty cool. I like ghost towns. Ghost towns intrigue me. Mine's going to be the Eatons Castle in Aberdeen, South Dakota. The castle was built in 1889 by a New York transplant hotelier and banker C.A. Bliss, who named the home Otella.
Otella?
Otella. O-T-E-L-A.
Interesting.
Otella. Anywho, Bliss ran into some financial problems. And this is when Carol Frances Easton, who was a banker, also from New York, purchased the house in 1893. So Bliss only had it for, 4 years before he couldn't afford it anymore? Pretty much filed bankruptcy, and that's what happened. Easton was an avid arborist, which, for some strange reason, everybody was a freaking arborist back then. He is the actual reason why Aberdeen is such a wooded town. Now, Aberdeen used to be treeless. It used to just be a prairie. But when he moved in with all of his arborist skills, he got everything, all the trees planted, all the undergrowth planted. I mean, everything was like, he got the whole place wooded up. Nice, pretty. His passion for trees is very evident by the thick forest that surrounds the castle. Now, if you look at the picture I sent you, you could see, which there's an old image there that was taken in the early 1900s, I do believe. In this 1900 picture, you could see the trees in the the left hand side, the right hand side, and in front the brush in the front.
Right.
His whole castle was surrounded by stuff like that, just secluded in the woods by itself. So in 1884 to 1965, Russell Easton, which was Carl Francis Easton's son, after Mr. Easton passed away, Russell wound up living there by himself. Now, Russell was not a hermit. He did not stay inside all the time. He was an outgoing person. He was a Aberdeen city engineer, a businessman, and he was also an avid ice skater. He started the annual Carnival of Silver Skates pageant, which still goes on today, near, I think it's Groton, Groton. Groton. I don't know how you would pronounce that. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. After he and his wife divorced in 1945, he became reclusive. This is when he started.
Groton is the name of the town?
Yes. This is when he started sticking to himself more than anything after his divorce. Now, to backtrack a little bit, after his dad died and he was living there by himself, all the ghost stories started to take place.
As they do.
He had a few artist friends in the ice skating club. And those are really the only people he ever hung out with. So he had a handful of friends in the ice skating club. He would get out, hang out with them, and after ice skating, he wouldn't go out, he wouldn't have drinks, he wouldn't go out to eat, he would just go home and keep to himself. The house itself had been host to many parties in the past. Rumors started to kick up by some kids in town who would sneak around in the woods. And it was said that Easton shot salt pellets at them with his shotgun.
Interesting.
Right. Now, here's another little fun tidbit about this place. The original author of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
He actually wrote some of The Wizard of Oz inside the Easton Castle.
Oh, that's neat.
Yep. They actually call the castle the Haunted Oz House because of that. It's got a couple different names. It's a yellow brick house built between 1886 and 1889. It was originally a 30-room, 3-story Queen Anne style mansion, but in 1902 it was bought by Mr. Easton, as we stated previously.
Did you say a yellow brick house?
Yellow brick.
And the author of what stayed there?
Wizard of Oz.
Interesting.
Now, when he started staying there by himself, after all the rumors started with the hauntings, the building started to rapidly deteriorate. He wouldn't keep up with anything when he became reclusive. So everything just went to crap quick. And that's when all the rumors really started picking up.
As it started looking more dilapidated?
Correct, yeah. Now, it is said that there was a couple ghost shows that did go there to investigate. A lot of things came up inconclusive. But people have said that they have reports of Mr. Easton's ghost, as well as the spirit of a family housekeeper. And there is also, nobody knows where this phantom came from or who it is, but he likes to chase people around with a knife.
Outside, inside? Does it say?
All around.
Okay.
It doesn't specify. But that's the Easton Castle.
Is the castle still there till today?
Yeah. If you look at the pictures,
that is current pictures.
That's a current picture. They've renovated it and restored it to and it's actually became a historic landmark.
Oh yeah, I guess it would be there because I just read that sign. So yeah.
So I think that concludes our South Dakota stint there, huh?
I do believe it does. I think we'll call that a wrap on South Dakota. Though I'm sure that there's some more pretty interesting places to actually investigate, but that was really hard just to find stuff without
I'm gonna be honest. I think it was a little bit more difficult than Washington D.C. was.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Washington. It's just all around the borders of it. Also.
Correct.
I would say y'all have a good night, but y'all have a good day.
Yeah, it's weird to say.
Yes.
Have a good one.